everyone, it's Sabrina Ray from Okashi Na Podcast, Anime with Friends, and I'm here with Don Munson. We are the hosts of a super cool podcast that deals in a lot of niche anime like Sarazanmai, or we're just finishing up Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, and we also did Beastars, and you guys may have followed us here from our Beastars video where we reacted to the Season 2 trailer, and we kind of wanted to do more of that because it's a chance to reach new audiences and make new friends. But today, we are specifically here to talk a little bit about One Piece because Dawn and I are both fans, and we feel like we could have a nice lively little discussion and share it with you, and you could get to know us, and maybe you come to check out our show afterward. I feel like I'm handing out improv tickets on like in New York. I'm just like, hey, come to my improv show.
Come to see this show. Oh, you won't regret it.
You like comedy?
Oh.
Anyway, Dawn, you have been reading the manga and you're up to date, and I have been watching the anime with my family, with my 9-year-old daughter and my wife, and we are up to date on the anime, which is still behind the manga. So, when did you start reading?
Well, I mean, I started reading. I'd heard good things about it. It was right around the time that I had gotten back into Dragon Ball Z and was watching that with my kids because they had never gotten caught up. So we watched that a little bit, and I was reading a little bit about Dragon Ball Z and saw a reference at that point to One Piece, and I'd never read it before, and so I started reading through, and I read about 100 chapters, and then took a little break, and then started like getting through a couple cycles of the story, and then stopped until our time of COVID, whereupon I said...
That seems to be a common thread among us all, that a lot of us started One Piece or re-jumped back on it and rewatched or reread some of it. We started doing it because of the lockdown and the quarantine situation that's happening everywhere.
So at that point, I jumped back in and was really invigorated after the end of the Fire Fist arc, and then just kept on reading and through the end. And let me just tell the
audience that there will be spoilers in this video because we are talking about the whole series sort of as a big picture.
It's true. If you happen to be starting on episode 1, I don't think this podcast is going to make, or this episode is going to make any sense to you whatsoever.
My wife ordered an entire box of 1 through 96. We've been watching the anime since a little bit before the quarantine started, so around March, February, when it was sort of still hazy what was going to happen there in the United States. We started watching the anime, and we've been watching it with our daughter. There's a lot of inappropriate material in One Piece, but I think the violence isn't so bad. Sometimes it gets bloody, and there's a lot of punching, and in the English version there's a lot of swearing, not the English dub that I can't vouch for that, but in the English translation there's a lot of bastards and shit and die. They don't use the F word, but they do go pretty far as getting colorful, piratey language. Sometimes it goes too far. Sometimes they'll just say woman in the Japanese version, and it'll be translated as bitch or something like that.
Huh. How lovely.
And it's not. But that's a different like podcast. So let's just get into it. Who is your favorite of the Straw Hat Pirates?
Jeez. You start off with a question that seems like it should be an easy one.
It might evolve. It might evolve through the series, and if you could take us on that journey, like if you had a favorite and then sort of a new one came along and you're like, this one's a little shinier.
I mean, I think I'm going to stick with what is probably the safe choice, and I really do like Luffy. I find, and you're going to have to help me out here because the names are not going to roll off my tongue. There's, Blackleg is his...
Sanji.
Sanji. I find Sanji to be too presumptuous, and for some reason I can't cater to his character. Plus the what I consider the fairly Japanese trait of spurting blood from the nostrils whenever you're around women to just be tedious.
It was, except for in his Fishman Island arc, it becomes so ludicrous. He almost dies of it. And
yes,
because they took it so far, I was really into it. I thought, this is hilarious. I was actually hoping that when they did a 2-year time skip at one point, right? And I was hoping that Sanji would grow from that, because I thought that being on an island full of women who are dressed, men who are... It's difficult for me to say as a trans woman, like, to describe them, but they're not trying to be...
Well, I'm curious as to why. I mean, because in the manga, it's fairly cut and dried that they are. I'm not sure. Is transvestites the right word?
Yes. It. Again, I think.
But I feel like you don't want to use that word. And do you consider it pejorative?
You know what? It's hard. It's hard because I know what a transvestite is. But you need a lot more information from the individual before you can affix that description to somebody. Because in many cases, I was probably perceived as a transvestite at parts of my journey through the gender spectrum. I always kind of knew what I was, but I also had times where my presentation could have sent very different signals depending on who you were.
I mean, yes.
I had high expectations for Sanji coming into that arc, thinking that when he came out of it, he would sort of have matured a little bit, and they
double down the opposite way.
Exactly. His lust for women actually doubles down. Exactly. It increases manifold. So Sanji not your favorite.
Sanji is not
my
favorite.
Long story short,
for one purpose there. I do like. Who's the swordsman? Yes, thank you.
Zoro.
I do like Zoro, although I confess they write it as Zolo, and so I was discomfited when I first started watching the anime and they called him Zoro, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But it was a tough switch in my mind, and I am very annoyed that they haven't explained the scar over his eye. That appears after the 2-year skip, and yeah. I get the impression they have no intention of doing so. That's not. I feel that if there's stuff that's going to be crowded out, that's going to be in that set.
Possibly. What do you like about Zoro? What is it about Zoro that kind of makes him your favorite? Other than Luffy.
Well, yeah. Outside of Luffy. I do like Zoro. I find him, he's no nonsense, often to the point of it being caustic to other characters, but he recognizes and respects, he's not goofy, and I sort of appreciate that because I like the particular style in which he really wants to be the best swordsman. He's very fixated on that. I like the characters that are fixated on their goals, and his is sort of clear-cut and understandable, and he's taking it seriously. He's a straight man the whole way through. So I just like his presentation of character. What's the counterpoint to him? It's the guy with the slingshot.
Oh, Usopp. The Sniper King.
The Sniper
God
King.
Usopp.
Yes. I find Usopp to be a little tedious.
In the anime, especially. I don't know if you've watched any of it.
I haven't. I don't think he's even shown up in the anime. He's played by
Kappei Yamaguchi, the same actor who played Boy-type Ranma, as well as a bunch of other roles. And he grates on you just a little bit.
It's clearly intentional. The character is not especially likable, but I also appreciate the fact that the characters are drawn with pretty obvious flaws, and that those flaws, are part of the characters as a whole.
I would say Usopp is likable, though. I would say he's likable because
he can be likable.
he's sort of like the heart and soul of the Straw Hats for a very long time. And when he leaves, it's sort of a huge downer, because he's been so he loses his confidence, remember that? And then he fights Luffy, and then he's so embarrassed by his behavior that he hides in a different identity called the Sniper King.
Yep.
And then he returns, and Luffy
he comes
and him
back. They reconcile.
This is a good example, but every single character in every single story has what everyone calls the ugly cry. It's the moment when a character who is otherwise like masculine or composed or beautiful and feminine, no matter who they are, in One Piece, at some point everyone ugly cries, where they've got snot just pouring down their face. And it's almost like you could just like turn it into a drinking game if you're binging the show. Like, it's a matter of time before people ugly cry in that show.